August 30, 1776. The sun is about to rise over Brooklyn. 1/3 of the Continental Army is still on the wrong side of the East River. The British are waking up. And George Washington, the man who would become the father of a nation, is standing on a dock, watching his revolution die. This is the story of the miracle that saved the American Revolution, and it has no rational explanation. Let's go back 3 days. July 1776, the Declaration of Independence has just been signed. The ink is barely dry. America is 1 month old and already fighting for its life. British General William Howe arrives off the coast of New York with something that no one in the colonies has ever seen. 400 ships, 32,000 soldiers. The masts of the fleet stretch across the horizon like a forest of trees stripped of their leaves. It is the largest invasion force ever assembled on American soil. Washington has 19,000 men. Many of them are farmers. Most have never fired a gun in combat, he writes to his brother in May. We expect a very bloody summer of it at New York. We are not in men or arms prepared for it. He knows what's coming. He just doesn't know how bad it will be. August 27, 1776. The British attack. It doesn't go the way Washington expects. Howe doesn't hit from the sea. Instead, 10,000 British troops march through the night, loop around the American flank, and hit them from behind at dawn. The Continental Army never sees it coming. The battle is over in hours. 300 Americans killed, 700 wounded, 1,000 captured. British losses, 400 men. It is the largest battle of the entire Revolutionary War, and it is a complete, total, catastrophic defeat. Washington watches from Brooklyn Heights. Down below, 400 soldiers of the 1st Maryland Regiment do the unthinkable. Historian David McCullough, who spent years researching this story, wrote, "Incredibly yet again, circumstances, fate, luck, providence, the hand of God, as would be said so often, intervened." Washington called it providence. His soldiers called it a miracle. Meteorologists have no satisfying explanation for why a dense fog would appear only over Brooklyn, only over the American side, only at that exact moment. Maybe it was luck, maybe it was weather, maybe it was something else. What we know is this: the American Revolution survived that morning by the width of 18 feet of visibility, by the thickness of a fog that had no reason to be there. This is almost history. Every episode of history has a version that never got told. This was almost that version. Outnumbered 10-1, they charged directly into the British lines 6 times to buy time for the rest of the army to retreat. Washington watches them die. He says out loud to no one in particular, "Good God, what brave fellows I have lost this day." But the dying hasn't stopped the catastrophe. By nightfall, the situation is this. Washington has 9,000 men left. They are trapped on Brooklyn Heights. Behind them, the East River. In front of them, 32,000 British soldiers. In the harbor, 400 British warships. The ammunition is ruined by rain. The men are exhausted, demoralized, and soaking wet. British General Howe does something that will haunt him for the rest of his life. He decides not to attack. He will dig siege trenches. He will take his time. He will crush them methodically. He has them cornered. There is nowhere for them to go. He is right. There is nowhere for them to go. And then George Washington does something that no one expects. August 29. Washington calls a secret meeting with his generals. The plan, if it can be called a plan, is this. They will evacuate the entire army, at night, silently, across the East River, right under the noses of the British fleet. It is by any measure insane. The soldiers are told they are preparing for a night attack on the enemy. They are not told the truth, because the truth cannot leak. A single whisper reaching the British would end everything. Washington sends word to gather every boat in New York, every ferry, every fishing vessel, every rowboat, anything that floats. Colonel John Glover and his regiment from Marblehead, Massachusetts. Fishermen and sailors, every one of them, will do the rowing. They waterproof their uniforms with tar. They wrap the oars in cloth so they make no sound against the water, and when darkness falls, they begin. The crossing is brutal, the wind is wrong, the current is strong. The first boats struggle for hours, but Glover's men keep rowing, back and forth, 20 trips or more across the black water, moving men, horses, cannons, supplies in absolute silence. Back on shore, 3 regiments hold the perimeter. They keep the fires burning. They keep up the appearance of a normal night in camp. If a British patrol comes close, they stand their ground and say nothing. Hour by hour, the army disappears across the river. By midnight, the wind shifts. The crossing gets easier, but it is slow. It is achingly, terrifyingly slow, and then the sky starts to lighten. 4:30 in the morning. Dawn is coming, and 1/3 of the army, thousands of men, is still in Brooklyn. This is the moment. This is where the American Revolution ends. Because when the sun rises, the British will see the boats. They will see the men. They will wake up and look across their siege trenches and realize what is happening. And before the last soldier reaches Manhattan, the warships will be in the river. Major Benjamin Tallmadge is one of the men still waiting on the Brooklyn shore. He will later write about what happens next. He writes, "As the dawn of the next day approached, those of us who remained in the trenches became very anxious for our own safety. And when the dawn appeared, there were several regiments still on duty. And then, something changes. At this time, a very dense fog began to rise off the river, and it seemed to settle in a peculiar manner over both encampments. I recollect this peculiar providential occurrence perfectly well, and so very dense was the atmosphere that I could scarcely discern a man at 6 yards distance. 6 yards, 18 feet. The man standing next to you invisible. The fog rolls in off the East River and swallows Brooklyn whole. It does not touch Manhattan. It covers only the American side, only the shore where the last men are waiting, only the water where the last boats are crossing. The British sentries can see nothing. The British warships can see nothing. The evacuation continues in broad daylight, inside a wall of white. Man after man, regiment after regiment, crosses the river and vanishes into the fog. Washington refuses to leave. He will not board a boat until every last soldier is across. He stands on the Brooklyn dock as the sun climbs higher and higher, and the fog does not lift. At 7 in the morning, the last regiment reaches the shore. Washington boards the final boat. As it pushes off from Brooklyn, British soldiers appear on the dock behind him. His boat is still visible on the river. They are that close. The boat reaches Manhattan. Washington steps ashore. The fog lifts, 9,000 soldiers, 0 casualties during the crossing. The entire Continental Army, men, horses, cannons, supplies, moved across a river in the dark, in silence in 11 hours, right under the eyes of the most powerful military force in the world. The British wake up and walk into the American camp. Empty. The fire's still burning, the tent's still standing, and not a single soldier left now. Let's ask the question that almost history always asks. What if the fog never came? Without the fog, the last third of the army is spotted at dawn. The warships move into the river. The boats are sunk or captured. Thousands of men are killed or taken prisoner. Washington himself, waiting on the dock until the last soldier crosses, is captured. Without Washington, there is no Battle of Trenton, no crossing of the Delaware in December 1776, the victory that keeps the Revolution alive through its darkest winter, no Valley Forge, no Yorktown, no surrender of Cornwallis. The British don't just win New York, they win the war. The United States of America never becomes a country. The Declaration of Independence becomes a historical curiosity, the brief, failed manifesto of a rebellion that lasted less than 2 months. Everything that follows, the Constitution, the presidency, 2.5 centuries of American history, depends on a fog that appeared from nowhere, covered only one side of the river, lasted exactly as long as it needed to last, and lifted the moment the last boat touched shore on the Manhattan side.